Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on Project Management App version 2.1. This is Clinton DeMello, your presenter for this webinar. I am a software developer at CloudFront Technologies. So before we start this webinar, I would like to state some guidelines that will be followed. All members will be muted throughout the session. Questions can be asked at the end of the seminar. And this video will be uploaded on YouTube on CloudFront's official page. So the agenda for today is we will have a look and an introduction to the PM app version 2.1. We will talk about all the bug fixes along the way and the new features that were added as a part of version 2.1 update. The first feature is team-wise search on resource allocation, and the second feature is the ability to remove all allocations that fall outside the task range. Now I will move on to the demo. So when we set up our project management solution, this is a one-time configuration that we will be setting up. This configuration has start date, end date, and all the basic details that will be used while managing the project and resources. So once this is done, we move on to the project management. I have already set up my configuration page, and here in the project management module, we can see the entities project. Here we can see a list of all the projects that are active. If you want to switch to inactive projects or completed projects, we can simply click on these views present in the system. So now here on the top, we create a new project. First, we will provide the project name. We can also add a template to the project. A template consists of billing codes that projects use. So here I will be adding a CRM template. Here in the status, we can mark a project as active, completed, not active, or inactive. So I will mark my project in the active state. We can give a client name and a start date and an end date to the project. Now on this page, we can also see this section, which is the budget details. Here, the total budget calculates the total budget of the project. Total hours are the number of hours for the project. And the fields in the right side are calculated fields. These fields fill in the data according to the time entries filled by the resources. And these are auto-populated. So now I will save this form. On saving the form, we get a pop-up which says, do you want to navigate to manage project management? So we click OK. Here we get a navigation panel on top which will guide us through the whole process. Firstly, we start with the skill set selections. Here we can see a list of all the skill sets available. and along with their description. If we hover on this, sorry, we can also search for the skill sets. Once the skill set is searched, we can add it to the project. So here in this example, I will be adding C# to the project. Then we move on to the next tab, which is team selection. In this page, we can see a list of all the users in the organization are shown. Here, we can also find the skill sets of each of the users and the booked for hours. Here, on the top panel, we can see we can add the users to the project or remove the users from the project. We can also filter the resources using the available resources or the matching skill set. So if we click on yes, the users with only C# skill set will be shown. In this example, I will add these two users. If we click on the Skype button, we can also see that there is a pop-up that shows open Skype, so that the user can know that they have been allocated for this and so project. Now we will add the users to the project. Next tab is the billing code. Here, as we selected the CRM template in the project, we can see the resources selected. In that CRM template, there were two billing codes, accountant and developer. So by default, these two billing codes are selected along with the rates of the billing codes. Once that is done, we move on to the Gantt chart. Here we see the name of the project on top and a variety of options on the top of the Gantt chart. First, we will create a new task as planning. We can also indent the task. Here we can see the start date and the end dates of the project, the days and the hours. So when we double click on any task, this pop-up is shown. In this pop-up, we can add the number of hours for this task. In this example, I will be adding 20 hours. And in the billing codes section, we can add the resources for this task. So I will add a developer and Clinton. Now, in this Gantt chart, we have a column of predecessors. If we have tasks that are dependent on other tasks, we can add them in the predecessors. If I want the design task to be started only after the completion of the planning, so we can add the predecessor as 2. Now we can see the indicator over here has changed. The top right, the indicators are shown. Yellow stands for active, green for completed, orange for not started, and red for inactive. After the change is done, we can also export this file to Excel, which will contain a list of all the users and the task and the start dates and the end dates. Once all the required changes are done, we save the task. Gantt chart. Then we move on to the next section, that is the resource allocation. Before saving, a pop-up is shown if we want to save all the changes that were made. If not, the changes will be lost. We have saved, so we proceed further. Here we see the resources that were selected. Now on the top we can filter these resources, or we can search for resources. Here I will allocate the resource Clinton Demel. In the task we can see the list of tasks, and here we select documentation. Automatically the task durations and the pending to allocate hours are populated, and here we add the number of hours we want to allocate that resource for. So I type in 20 hours and allocate the resource. Here there are three features: split by availability, split equally, and split manually. I will split by availability and click on save. Once the resources are allocated, we can see the indicator over here, and in the Gantt and the configuration data we had set 7 hours as the working day. So anything about 7 hours will be marked as a red indicator. If we double click on the task, we can see the details about the task. Now we move on to the task details preview. Here we can see the list of all of the tasks that we had entered in the Gantt chart with the budgeted hours, the progress, and the actual hours. And finally, in the last page, we come to the main project page. Here we can see the total budget, and the budgeted hours are also calculated based on the billing codes and the hours for each task that they were allocated for. Here we can see the billing codes and the team members for this project. And at the end, we see the task details. Once this is done, we go to the resource allocation. Here we can view all the resources along with their allocations. As we just allocated this resource for documentation, we can see the billable hours as 7. A new feature that has been added to this is the team selection. Here we can not only filter by projects but also by the organization teams. Here we have one team, we select, and here project can select Crimson. And when we click on view, we see only those resources after filtering. The next update that we had in our version 2.1 app is to remove allocations outside the task date range. So we go to the Gantt chart, and we move the dates. First we see the resource for first we check when the resource was allocated for the task. It starts at 19th November, December. Now we move this date to 20. We get a pop-up notification, and if we click on OK, the allocations outside the task dates will be removed. We will click on OK and save. So now when we go to the resource allocation, we see that the resource is no more allocated on the 19th of December. There were several bugs that were fixed in this version. One of them was in the managed project Gantt chart. Here we can add other tasks such as the task can also be moved up and down. We can also Another bug that was fixed is with the indentation. Now I save the task and I go to the project main page. Here at the bottom we can see the hierarchy is maintained. Once the resources are allocated for their respective tasks, they can go to the timesheets where they can select the project task and the billing code and add the time entries for the particular day and submit the time entries. The other changes that we will be adding in the future are to split equally by working days. Now to summarize the session, we looked today we looked at how a project is created, how the resources are allocated for the particular project, and how they can view their allocations in the resource allocations tab. We also looked at all the bug fixes and the new resource allocation upgrades for the version 2.1. If anyone has any doubts, they can ask now. Thank you guys for time. Have a good day.